I guess just recently I got brought to my attention, there's a little bit of controversy, I guess, amongst advisors or people that give advice when it comes to withdrawal rates as to how much people should be pulling out of their investments to live on. And I guess there's, the old 4% rule, and Dave Ramsey says, hey, you should be able to pull out at least 8%. So there's a video that was brought to my attention. I'm going to watch it and then just give you my reaction and my thoughts on it afterwards.
Today's question comes from Steve in Oklahoma. He asks, I'm 72 years old and my wife is 70. We're both in good health. We have a combined retirement and Social Security income of about $140,000 a year. We own our home outright and have no debt. We have about $100,000 in Roth and $1 million in traditional IRAs. Our wonderful, I know.
Way to go, Steve.
Our wonderful financial advisor is recommending a distribution of no more than 4%. We're looking at about 5% to enable us to travel while we're able to. What is your recommendation on the maximum annual distribution? It's a great question. And they're in a good spot. And so this makes me feel better about saying, sure, $40,000 versus $50,000 on the distribution is what they're really asking, right? On, let's say, the $1 million in traditional IRAs, that's going to be taxable. Mm-hmm. This doesn't feel like a big portion of their world if they've got, the $140,000 income.
So if the money is invested in good mutual funds and it's making, average market returns of 11%, 12%, why can you only take out 4%?
Just fear, I think, is the main reason people do
No,
it.
why would
Inflation.
the financial advisor say that?
He gets more money? Is that how that works?
Possibly. Or possibly he is a financial planning lemming. You know what a lemming is?
That's an old school word.
These are small rats that run in herds and follow each other over cliffs.
That is the funniest way I've heard to describe financial advisors.
And so, meaning you go along with the crowd. You go along with the crowd. You go along with the crowd. And you don't even ask why. You just go along with the crowd. And so you don't want to be sheeple. So here's the thing. That is a standard thing in financial planning, 4%. Because after inflation and after poor rates of return on the portfolio, you're still going to be okay at 4%. But by God, 5%, you're going to sink it. Which is completely asinine. This is ridiculous.
They're going ultra conservative
obviously,
here.
Steve, you are smarter than your financial advisor because you have more money than he does. And you've done a better job than he has. So you can kind of tell him what to do with your money.
I do have to kind of agree with him a little bit as far as, the 4% rule. That's an old antiquated rule that was, created, many years ago when interest rates were different, market environments were different. And some of these advisors out there, do kind of follow algorithms. You'll sit down with them and they'll just, ask you some questions, ask you what your risk tolerance is and follow some sort of algorithm. Let me and there's so much, I guess there's a lot going through my head right now in the sense that there's so much conflicting information out there. You read one thing says you should pull 4% out if you want to live the rest of your life on it. And then you read, maybe a Dave Ramsey guy says, hey, you should be pulling 8% because the market averages, 10 or 12% a year. Here is the point that I got to ask when it comes to these draw rates. What time period is he talking about? Because if somebody says, hey, listen, you know what, the market average, in Dave Ramsey's case, he says, I think 11 to 12% or whatever number he says. My first question is, what time period are you talking about? Because if the market has averaged, 10%, the market's been around for 95 years. So if we're using that as the standard, I have yet to come across a retiree that's been retired for 95 years. So let me give you a couple of scenarios. What time period is he talking about? In this particular case, I'm going to pull up a chart here for you on the screen, and you'll see that somebody retiring in 1976 through 86, their rate of return was 21%. So I guess Dave Ramsey is correct. Somebody else retiring 61 through 71, their rate of return is over 11%. So again, I guess, Dave Ramsey is correct, possibly. And then, of course, let's say somebody in 1961, because of choice or due to age, decides that they're going to retire 3 years later. Look at their return, 4.1%. So if that individual is pulling 8% out a year, is that money really going to last them the rest of their lives? So what time period are we talking about? So here's the thing. When it comes to retirement planning, most people, when they retire, they don't know how long they're going to live. So the question becomes, I want to spend interest, preserve principal. I want to spend interest, preserve principal. I want this money to last the rest of my life. And a lot of these advisors out there, and I heard Dave Ramsey use the term average rate of return. Average rate of return, if not used in the appropriate context, can be the big lie. And let me share with you what I mean by that. I have a screen I want to share with you that says, hey, listen, let's say we're going to use, he threw the term 6% out there. And now these numbers I'm going to share with you, let's base it on 6%. So let's say we have $100,000 and I need to average 6% rate of return in order for my money to, last me the rest of my life. So let's say I put this money in investment and it makes 6% each and every year. And as you can see on the chart, I'm just drawing out the interest. My principal is remaining the same. So after a 10-year period of time, if I add up these percentages divided by 10, you'll see that this account averaged 6%. But at the end of 10 years, I still have my $100,000. But folks, let's say we take that same money and we put it in the market. And let's just say hypothetically, let me get my screen up here. Let's say that first year, the market's down 30%. Is that even possible? Well, we've seen it in 1 month in March of 2020 during COVID. The market was down 30% in a month. So we know that it is possible. We've seen terms like that. So now if the market's down 30, can I call the electric company, phone company and say, hey, listen, can I put you off until the market rebounds? No. So I'm forced to take another 6,000 out. The following year, the market's down another 20. I take out another 6,000. Now the market rebounds. In this chart, you can see it makes 10, 10, 10, 10, another 20, another 30 last 2 years. Same exact withdrawals as the other slide. Now my balance is 38,898. So if I add these percentages up, divided by 10, guess what this account also averaged? 6%. But some of you watching this video right now, so Rick, what if you just reverse those numbers? It'll still average 6%. What would the results be then? Let's take a look at that. So now let's say we start off making 30, then 20, 10, 10, 10. We only had 2 down years where we lost 20, lost 30. Same exact withdrawals as the other 2 slides. Now my balance is 105,544. If I add these percentages up, divided by 10, this account also averaged 6%. So I showed you 3 different slides. They all average 6% rate of return. But when we were fortunate enough to have things go our way, we made an extra 5,000. When we were not so fortunate, we lost. So folks, it depends on how we are actually getting that 6% rate of return or that 4% rate of return or that 8% that Dave Ramsey talks about, I guess, in some of his videos. In this particular one, he mentioned 6% in this particular client situation. So let me show you one other scenario that I want to share with you. Using 6%. Let's say I have 2 brothers, 10 years apart in age. And one brother, his name is Steve, and he decides he's going to retire in 1990. And he has $500,000 in his 401k or his IRA, and he decides, hey, I need 6% a year to live on. He wants to pull $30,000 out a year in order to be comfortable. Well, by the end of 1999, taking $30,000 out a year, taking 6% out, he has $1.2 million, a little over $1.2 million. He did pretty fair for himself. Now his brother, who is 10 years younger, now decides he wants to retire. Now, of course, he sees that Steve, and these are actual returns of the market now, rather than that hypothetical I gave you earlier. So his brother Bill decides, hey, listen, I'm going to copy Steve's performance. He calls his brother Steve and says, listen, I saw what a fantastic job you did with your investments. I'm going to put my money in the market, just like Dave Ramsey and some of these other guys say, and I'm going to go ahead and follow my brother Steve's advice. Having $500,000, pulling 6%, $30,000 out a year, from the year 2000 to the year 2009, same exact withdrawals, money invested in the market, same exact way that his brother did. Now Bill's value is $156,000. Same exact withdrawal rate. So again, I'd ask you, what time period are we talking about? This guy is now going to run out of money. So the scenario that I want to point out to you is this. When it comes to income planning, average rate of return is the big lie. The other thing that we have to discuss, and one of the things that I do want to mention going forward, is that when it comes to investments, The advisor has to understand the client he is dealing with. He has to understand the psychology of the client. And this is what I mean. I showed you some scenarios. Let me give you a scenario that you all can relate to. Let's go back to 2007, more recent times. Some of you were working back then, and you know that some of your colleagues, when the market was peaking in 2007, some of your colleagues decided they wanted to retire. And guess what those brokers did? They showed them the 4% rule. So as long as you're pulling 4% of your money, as the money's going to last you the rest of your life. They ran these Monte Carlo simulations saying, hey, again, as long as you're pulling 4% out, the money's going to last you the rest of your life. Clients retired. 2007. We know what happened in 2008. When the market dropped, let me give you a simple example. If the market drops 10 and now I'm drawing out 4, I'm now down 14. I'm intensifying the losses. Going into the following year, I still need my 4% to live on. So now I need to draw out my 4%. Now I'm down 18%. And before the market even has a chance to come back again. So here's the thing. Let's assume that 4% rule worked beautifully, or the 6% rule worked beautifully. Why was it that in 2008 people went back to work again? Because they were relying on a statistic, they were relying on some rule of thumb that does not work anymore. So when it comes to your income planning, if somebody's just telling you, yeah, just take all your money, throw it in the market, and just buy some, good mutual funds with it, and that you're gonna, this month just pull 4% out, or 6% out, or 8% out, it's gonna last you the rest of your life. Even if that was the case, does the individual have the psyche to be able to withstand those downfalls? So just because some people are willing to take risks, should they, and then some people are so worried about the market, so scared that they might know in their mind, yes, this is something logically I should do, but emotionally they can't handle it. So what good is it for all their money to be in the market and emotionally they can't handle the ups and downs? So I guess my point is this. We can't go by general rules of thumb. We have to design the plan around a client's specific situation, the income needs that they have, but also their own psychology. We have to make sure that this money, that under any situation, if the worst case scenario happens, they know for a fact that they can count on that income coming in. So there's more to retirement planning than just putting the money in the market and hoping for a good rate of return. Because again, what time period are we talking about? Do we want to leave our investments? Do we want to rely on luck? Do we want to rely on just timing? And I gave you the scenario between Steve and Bill, an example for you to understand. So if you have questions regarding any of these topics and you're like, hey, listen, you know what? I'd like to know how to put together a plan that's just not relying on the market to create my income that I can count on. And if there's down markets, I'm not stressing. I don't have that same call that I've been getting for years from the broker telling me, oh, just hang in there to come back again. Because if that is the case, then why did we coin the term unretire back in 2008? So if you have questions about any of these topics, there are links below that you can click, and we'll be more than happy to give you a second opinion on this stuff and make it specific to your situation. Oh, and real quickly, since we're talking about income and income needs in retirement and withdrawal rates, well, in order to start off, I guess we got to start at step one. And step one is actually this pamphlet that we're actually giving away. It's retirement income planning. It's our retirement income planning booklet. And actually, if you call or click the link below, we'll be able to send this to you. And this would be by filling this out, this will be your first step. So if you do give us a call, this is the first step in actually creating what your income draw rate should actually be, and we can design it around you specifically. So if you'd like this, just click the links below or give us a call. We can either email it to you, mail it to you, or you can come by the office and pick it up. So whatever way is easier for you, just give us a call and we'll try and accommodate it.